I am 83. I was born the 21st day of June, 1933. My mother was Alice Danielle Goad Lewis.
And your dad?
Sullivan Duncan Lewis. They lived out at Lindsay, and he had an apple tree on his piece of property, and she had run down and swiped an apron full of apples so they could have an apple pie for supper that night, and that's when he caught her. Well, I started at Atwood. I went 1 year there, and then we moved to Allen, and I went 1 year there, and that was when World War II broke out, and I went to school on the West Coast from there on. We moved out in the summer of '42. Dad went to work at the shipyards. Gotcha. And my brother Cotton went into service first day of December, 1941. Cotton spent his time in Alaska. He was in, when the Japanese tried to invade Alaska, he was in the battle up there. And Chief, my older brother, and his name is Chief Anderson Lewis, he wanted to do nothing but fly. The fun part of it was he got his orders to ship out, 1943. He got caught out behind the hangars shooting craps with the Chinese pilots, speaking Chinese. I guess you know that he spent the rest of the war training Chinese pilots to fly. He was quite good to pick up languages. He could also speak some Choctaw. Dad had an excellent education. All of the boys did. Dad was a U.S. Deputy Marshal. Uncle Anderson was the oldest. Okay. He was the last elected sheriff for Gaines County before statehood. He was killed in the line of duty. Uncle Tom was next, Overton, and he was a judge down in Love County. Uncle Frank was next, and he was the city marshal for a little town called Pittsburgh, and then there was Uncle Lowe. And all of them showed the Indian except Uncle Lowe, and he took after the German side. He was blonde-headed and blue-eyed. So he played an Indian chief in Will Rogers' Wild West show.
Indian played Indian?
No, he had to wear a black wig. He was blonde-headed and blue-eyed. He took after the German side.
That's awesome.
Uncle Lowe was the only one that didn't get into it. Uncle Frank was killed in the line of duty. So was Uncle Anderson. And as I said, Uncle Tom was a judge down in Love County. And Dad finally retired.
How old was he when he retired?
Probably late 40s, early 50s and all, because Mother was throwing temper tantrums at him. Dad believed that each one of us knew how to handle a weapon, and he started teaching me when I was about 5 years old. And my sister, the sister next to me, is 14 years older than I am. And every time Dad would say, let's go out and pop a few, she'd run into the bedroom screaming and cover her head with a pillow. She didn't like the noise. 1951, we moved, Harold and I moved back here. We were following the vegetables, and we worked at Salinas, we worked at the Imperial Valley, we worked down in Texas, and we'd been up in Colorado and all this, just moving it from place to place. And he was tired of it, and so was I, and we wound up at Okmulgee, next to his parents. And about that time, we both got into rodeos and rodeoing. I could go and watch the rodeo and watch him rope calves, and then I could turn barrels and all of this, and then I got to working as a rodeo secretary. And I guarantee you those cowboys that were going to college, they wanted to get out there and they wanted to ride and all of this. As Harold and I would go to rodeos and all, we could never afford for him to have the fancy Western shirts. I could go to TG&Y and buy 3 yards of material for $1, and I could go home and sit down and make him a Western shirt. And he had some of the nicest shirts on the rodeo circuit.
That's awesome.
And when the bell-bottoms, women's bell-bottom pants come out with the pleats in them, I took a good look at one pair and then made me a pair.
That's awesome.
And even the kids had the clothes and all to wear. And I made all of the boys' shirts that they wore to school and everything. I remember Aunt Dude, mother's sister, she and Uncle Josh didn't have any children. They raised hogs and cows and all, and she would pick their feed in print sacks, and she would make get enough print sacks to make Imogene a dress, and me, it just took 2 sacks to make me a dress, because I was only 6 and all. And Mother made our dresses, and we were always the best dressed kids in school. And I had one little girl get mad at her mother because Mother made my panties to match my dress. I was in the 1st grade, and that little girl got mad at her mother because her mother couldn't buy her panties that matched the same material that her dress was made out of. You see, even 6-year-olds had fashion conscious. I learned to sew on my grandmother's sewing machine, standing on 1 foot because I wasn't big enough to sit and treadle it. And my dad made my first beading loom, and it was one end off of a fruit box that he cut in little squares, and he put it on the other end. It was about, probably 12 inches long, and Dad taught me how to bead. This one is a turtle, and it has the earrings in here. Now, I'm not sure, I know that I showed this at the Tulsa State Fair, and it has a blue ribbon on it. This is what the Potawatomi tribe calls their their design. But the rest of them are just designs that I have made.
That one's very pretty.
And they're all original. This one is Kokopelli. These are the 3 wise men. They are green, blue, and burgundy.
They're beautiful.
And they are 2-sided. They have a back and a front. Here are I have the angels, and I think there's 2 sets of them, and also they have a back and a front. They're complete. And they have they are sewn together with beads. Each one was put on a very piece of canvas. And I have 2 sets of them. One set went to Tulsa Fair, and the other set went to Oklahoma City. Since the shows overlapped, I always had 2 of each deal to go. And this one has fetishes in it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It has, let's see, here is the owl, or here is the eagle. These are just turquoise. Here's the fish on either side. Here is the bear, and here is the other bear. They are all fetishes that belongs to the tribes. Don't ask me how I come up with that, but that was what I did.
Well, it's beautiful.
And all. This has a butterfly in the center of it. It's a choker.
It's very pretty.
And these are all glass beads. Some of them are not glass. I'm looking for one. Oh. These are not glass. These are solid. And all. You can see the difference in the types of them.
What advice would you give to your granddaughter or future generations about continuing the legacy and continuing to...
I would tell them that they need to know exactly who they are and how they come down the Choctaw line.